Hello everyone, I am your host Anupam Verma, and today with me is Swathi Vellal. She is the director founder of Ishanya India organization, and she has been very active in terms of providing support to people with special needs, disability, something like autism, Down syndrome, ASD, ADHD. Let me tell you something about Swathi. Swati, as I said before, is the director founder of Ishanya India Foundation. Swati herself is a special educator and she started her journey at the mere age of 25 years. That's too young, Swati. People are still sleeping in their beds under the quilt at that age when you had that rising and that motive towards life. She holds a master degree in special education needs and inclusion from University of Northampton, UK, and a master's degree from clinical psychology from Christ University, Bangalore. Now, coming back to Ishanya India Foundation, it is a non-profit organization which was established in 2015 with the intention to train and empower people with disability. Now, they have a team of therapists and educators working with them, tirelessly trying to provide innovative ways to encourage and engage people with disability so that they can have a better version of their lives, a better tomorrow. They aim to work with families as well and towards the school, towards the holistic development of the child. They are training these individuals for employment and independent living. So that's hell of a portfolio, Swati. Welcome to our show, Swati. And Swati, before we get on to discussion, I wanted to ask you, a very important question. There are people with disability. Parents do not recognize them. We know that they all think that ho jayega, sab kuch ho jayega. Things have started changing when it comes to neurodiversity at workplace. That is what we are talking about today. The HRs have become more complacent. The government has become more aware. How they can be helping people. Now, what I want to know is how difficult it is for people with disability to be technologically literate because at times even we do not understand technology well. And what are the fields in which all these people with disability can be trained so that they can get financially independent? Because half of the times parents do not know that and they are just left to fend for themselves. If they become financially independent, they'll have a very good future. But generally, people do not know. And are there any government support which these people can get skills? So I think we would want to hear it from you.
Sure, Anupam. Thank you for the introduction, and it's lovely to be here today. So, how difficult or easy it is for PWDs to be technologically literate, right? Honestly, I think it all depends on the interventions they have received from a young age. The problem starts at a young age, right? As a lot of children with disabilities are much less likely to complete their primary education. But what we've seen is technology can really level the playing field for people with disabilities. For a lot of our students, in fact, learning computer skills has been very easy because they find computers very predictable, very easy to understand and use. And most technology companies now are also investing in accessibility compared to, let's say, 15, 20 years back. I think things are a lot more easier now, but we just need to improve the awareness and start using the solutions available from a grassroots level. And when it comes to different fields, right, I think a person with disability is no different from the fact that they may have that one impairment or disability. They can be trained, they can be skilled in any sector, provided they're given the right accommodations and their strengths are recognized. Just to name a few, right? Lately, we've seen people with disabilities in the manufacturing sector, retail sector, hospitality, IT sector, and we ourselves run a creative lab here where we're training students on design and multimedia skills. We outsource a lot of work, and it's just amazing to watch them work. And when it comes to government schemes, honestly, I'm not sure of any particular scheme as such, but I think through NSDC, the National Skill Development Corporation, there are many beautifully designed courses available, in fact, available for free that students can enroll into, and their certificates are quite valid. And we have seen a lot of our students benefiting from the NSDC courses.
And Swati, how has corporates behaved in terms of accepting neurodiversity with them?
Sure. So when it comes to neurodiversity, right, Anupam, actually, every time I'm invited to talk on neurodiversity, it makes me think of how far we've come as a society. And, recently I was reading an article by an autistic person named Dan Edmonds, and he writes an article about empowerment. And it really made me think on how far we've come, because this article begins with the idea that autism is like a disease that has to be eradicated. This is ignorance, right? And then from this came the idea that people with autism are different but had an attitude of pity. This is basically tolerance. Then the next stage is where one is able to see autism as not a thing but a mode of being. This is in one way some sort of awareness. But beyond this, one begins to focus not just on the challenges but also on the strengths. So this is when the acceptance comes. And then one starts to understand the diversity. So from this point on, one is able to incorporate dignity, promoting self-advocacy, embracing diversity, and this is empowerment. So, when I think about it, all we needed was a change in perspective. And this change is what is helping a lot of individuals with invisible disabilities. And I'm sure you understand, Anupam, neurodiversity actually represents a strength based model, right? Which acknowledges that while some individuals learn and think differently, these are simply differences and not really deficits. Just to give you an example, a person with autism may have sensory sensitivity. They may be, hyposensitive or hypersensitive to certain sounds or certain visuals, but they may have great attention to detail. So if you look at autism or ADHD or other related conditions from this perspective, it actually helps in creating opportunities that allow these individuals to sort of experience success that they can capitalize on, so that they can persevere through their other challenges as well. So, the capabilities and talents of those with autism or ADHD are being recognized and are even sought after, particularly in the workplace. Am I audible, Anupam? Have I lost connection?
No, you are pretty much audible, Swati. You are audible. Now you are not audible, Swati.
Am I
Yes,
audible now?
yes, you're audible now. Yes.
Okay, awesome. So what I'm trying to say is, the capabilities and talents of those with autism or ADHD are being recognized and are even sought after, particularly in the workplace. And we see a lot more companies seeing neurodiverse members as competitive edge or competitive advantage. And but underemployment, unemployment, in those on the spectrum especially, it remains incredibly high, and this is just all over the world. And I think one of the big factors, Anupam, could be that not enough time is spent on understanding the strengths of these individuals, and thereby not providing the right training to harness their potential. But like I mentioned, I think slowly things are changing and perspectives are changing. And what we have seen in other countries and what we are seeing today here in India is organizations of all sizes and across various industries can actually benefit from being neuro-inclusive by tapping into the strengths and skills of neurodiverse individuals. It may include new ways of solving a problem. It could mean higher levels of concentration, very keen accuracy, ability to detect errors, reliability, persistence, and so on. And I think personally for us, from Ishanya, since the pandemic, we've been seeing like an increased interest by companies to hire neurodiverse individuals. However, it's becoming difficult sometimes to find the right candidate to the right job. So we're currently sort of working with a number of companies to factor in the idea of extended training program along with long-term internships, which can help them gain the right skill set. We feel that this can actually go a long way in ensuring that they find the right opportunity. And unless we do this consistently, right, we may not even know what works and what doesn't, because compared to a lot of other countries, the ground reality is very different here. And a lot of neurodiverse individuals may not even have access to education, right, despite having all the policies in place. And honestly, there's so much discussion on neurodiversity. Sometimes it makes me think that we can't just go by the white papers on best practices and everything, right? Companies will really need to invest time and understand the community. But in our experience of working with various stakeholders, there are some things that we feel would definitely help in creating a neurodiverse workplace. It could be, for example, a very structured job analysis. It's important to work with hiring managers, team members to understand what they do, what is expected out of every individual in that team. Basically, analyze the day in the life of the candidate in that particular team, giving importance to micro details. We really need to move away from all the abstracts and get into the specifics. Then, a very important factor is the interview process. Typical interviews, right, if you think about it, often end up acting as a test of social competence rather than a means to measure a candidate's ability to perform specific tasks. So, but candidates with neurodiversity, for example, right, may not be able to follow social norms very carefully. Some candidates may have trouble making eye contact. They're prone to fidgeting or exhibit physical tics. But an inclusive and adaptive interview process is required, where individuals are not judged by their inability to do something, but by their ability to do a particular task and what they can really contribute to that particular organization. Number three, sensitizing the managers and the teams, right? Help them understand the individual that they're going to be working with, provide the best practices of interaction, instruction delivery, and coexistence. It's really important to respect individual differences. And generally, what we have seen is a good manager would be able to understand how each team member works, how they best understand assignments, and adapt their style accordingly. And another important factor is buddy system, where each individual is assigned a team member or a mentor who can help them with day-to-day tasks, help them grow in the organization, and also provide emotional support if need be. I was recently reading an article which said organizations that provide mentors to employees with disabilities actually reported a 16% increase in profitability, 18% in productivity, and 12% in customer loyalty. Of course, another important factor is, job readiness and domain-specific training of the neurodiverse individuals. And I think it's also important to define a clear career path, empower them to set, short-term and long-term goals for themselves, analyze the progress, and help them achieve the same. And of course, creating that overall, culture of inclusiveness. So basically, Anupam, what I'm trying to say is, for neurodiversity initiatives and companies to be successful, the companies will really need to get into the specifics. For example, in the planning phase, right, they need to work on identifying a couple of things, like why are they doing this. It's important to assess the workplace culture to see if these kind of initiatives would be a good fit, because starting something is easy, right, but sustaining is when the challenge starts. Then number two is who can help. Who will champion this sort of an effort from executive level, and in case they need to work with external organizations as well, and how to make this a business case. What is the value proposition, what is the cost, what's the ROI, because these initiatives clearly can't be done from a CSR point of view. It has to be a business objective. So after this, the companies will need to look at, okay, where to start, what does a pilot look like, how to source candidates, and so on. And finally, what does success look like? What are the indicators of success? How do they continue to support the development of these candidates? Now, I think a growing number of organizations are working on these initiatives. In many cases, the accommodations and challenges are manageable, and the potential returns are, great. Also, Anupam, when it comes to technology, right, we all know that no two people, including those with neurodiversity, are alike. So having a blended team can actually give way to various perspectives on a single problem, and that's how innovation is born. Honestly, the technology sector, right, for example, has so much to gain from neurodiversity. Not only are neurodiverse members catalyst for innovation, but they also represent a population of the people for which they're creating products for. I was reading an article where an autistic person, had shared his experience of using a particular website, and he just couldn't read as there were so many ads, flashing, and there was no way for him to stop them. Maybe the websites, he writes in the article how the websites probably are made accessible for people with visual impairment or even hearing impairment. But what about, let's say, for example, who has sensitivity to light, or maybe somebody with epilepsy? They have no way to go through the content. The person, writes how he had to literally put sticky notes and move them as he scrolled through the pages to be able to deal with this issue. So if you think about it, it's really important to speak out on issues like this. Otherwise, there'll be so many people who will be driven away from valuable resources. However, because of this, there are so many corporations who've built in systems, to sort of encounter these kind of issues. And like I mentioned, there's so much each sector can actually gain from neurodiverse workforce. I also remember reading about one person called David. He's a 33-year-old man with autism. He began working in SAP's Global Post Sales Operation Department when his team actually ran into a problem. So they didn't have like a good system for dealing with internal work order requests, which simply got piled up in the department's email inbox. So what David did was he helped the team invent and put in place a ticket-based approach to process these requests in an orderly fashion. So neatly cured up, the request became very easy to visualize, easy to track. So I think it was, his curiosity, his out of the box thinking that helped in coming up with this kind of a solution. In fact, in this article, his manager writes how he's been highly beneficial in improving the overall processes of the organization. So, Anupam, what I think is, what organizations do to provide an inclusive environment for neurodivergent workforce can actually have a big spillover effect on the entire workforce. What managers learn from finding solutions for the unique needs of neurodivergent professionals can be applied to the entire workforce. And all these common considerations for neurodivergent professionals may alter traditional HR practices, but can inevitably make the workplace much better, safer, and more inclusive space for everyone. That's all I want to share.
Thank you, Swati. Thank you for your insights. It's almost like, climbing up an Everest step by step process. I know it is a long way for India, but still we are going to be there. And I would not say that neurodiversity is a distant dream at a workplace right now. We will be working on it, and thankfully, with your organization in place, we will have lot many people coming into you. Excelling their skills and eventually finding that financial independence and that emotional support in their workplace. Thank you so much for your time, Swati. It was lovely talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anupam. Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you.